The war room of the Zetharian flagship glowed with soft blue light. Hundreds of officers stood in perfect rows, their silver uniforms reflecting the holographic displays that floated in the air. At the center of the massive chamber, Supreme Commander Thexron raised one of his forearms, and the room fell silent. "We stand at the edge of total victory," Thexron announced, his voice echoing through the space. 47 worlds have fallen before us. 47 civilizations now serve the Zetharian Empire. Only one remains defiant. A hologram appeared above them, showing a small blue and green planet spinning slowly in the darkness. Earth, the third planet from an unremarkable yellow star in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. "This world should have fallen in days," Thexron continued. "Their technology is primitive. Their weapons are crude. Their ships barely reach their own moon. And yet, they resist." Murmurs rippled through the assembled officers. It was true. For 3 cycles, the humans had fought back with tactics that made no sense. They hid their ships in asteroid fields. They attacked supply lines instead of engaging directly. They used their planet's own debris as weapons. They refused to follow any logical pattern of warfare. "They are unpredictable," said War Marshal Krendos. "Our battle computers cannot calculate their next moves. They do not fight with honor or strategy. They fight with chaos." "Then we will end the chaos," Thexron said. He gestured, and another figure stepped forward into the light. Chief Weapons Engineer Kralvex carried a small container, barely larger than his hand. Inside it, something dark and smooth caught the light. Kralvex placed the container on the central platform. The object inside was a perfect sphere of black metal, so dark it seemed to absorb the light around it. "I present the Entropy Cascade device," he said. "The finest weapon ever created by Zetharian science." He touched a control, and the sphere lifted from its container, hovering in the air. Holographic diagrams appeared around it, showing its inner workings in complex detail. "Inside this device are 7 billion nanomachines," Kralvex explained. "Each one is programmed with a single purpose: to dismantle. When this sphere reaches Earth's surface, the nanomachines will activate. They will spread across the planet, invisible to human detection. First, they will consume the humans' power generation systems. Their cities will go dark. Then they will dismantle their weapons. Their militaries will become helpless. Finally, they will begin breaking down their infrastructure piece by piece until nothing remains but ruins." "How long?" asked Thexron. 3 weeks for complete planetary neutralization," Kralvex said with pride. "And the beauty of the design is this: the device is tamper-proof. Any attempt to open it, scan it, or interfere with it will trigger immediate activation. The humans cannot stop it. They cannot even understand it." The assembled officers made sounds of approval. This was the Zetharian way: clean, efficient, perfect. "There is no defense against this weapon," Kralvex continued. "The nanomachines will replicate using the very materials they consume. They will spread like a wave across the entire planet. By the time the humans realize what is happening, it will be too late. Earth will fall without us firing a single shot." Thexron looked at the dark sphere, then at his officers. "Prepare the launch. Target the most heavily populated continent. Let the humans watch their world crumble." 2 days later, the sphere was loaded into a missile and fired from the edge of Earth's solar system. It moved faster than any human satellite could track, faster than their primitive radars could detect. It entered Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its surface glowing red with heat. The Zetharian fleet watched from their position beyond the moon. Sensors tracked every moment of the sphere's descent. It fell through clouds, past aircraft, down toward the surface of North America. The targeting system had chosen its landing site carefully: rural farmland in the center of the continent, far from major cities but positioned to spread efficiently in all directions. The sphere struck the ground in a field of corn, creating a small crater. Dust rose into the air and settled. The device sat there silent and dark, waiting. "Activation in 72 hours, Kralvex reported. "The internal systems are calibrating to Earth's environment. Soon the cascade will begin." The fleet waited. Sensors monitored every human communication channel, ready to detect the first signs of the collapse. 3 days passed. Then a week. Then 2 weeks, nothing happened. Human cities continued to glow with light. Their communications remained active. Their ships still flew through their atmosphere. The power grids showed no disruption. The weapon systems remained online. "Status," Thexron demanded on the 15th day. Kralvek stared at his instruments in confusion. The device, it activated on schedule. The nanomachines dispersed, but there is no cascade, no replication, no destruction. Where is the device now? Kralvek's face went pale. His hands trembled over the controls. Commander, the device signature is moving. It is no longer on the planet's surface, then where is it? The sensor display updated, showing a trajectory. The officers stared in disbelief. It is in space, Kralvek whispered. It is moving toward us. At twice the speed we sent it. The war room erupted in confusion. Officers shouted questions. Sensors were checked and rechecked. But the readings did not change. The sphere was coming back, and when it arrived 3 days later, everything would change. The Zetharian intercept team approached the returning object with weapons charged and shields at maximum. 3 fighter craft surrounded it, scanning every surface. What they saw made no sense. The perfect black sphere they had sent to Earth was no longer perfect. Something had been done to it. The surface was scratched and marked. There were symbols painted on it in bright colors, red, yellow, and blue. Human letters spelled out words in their crude language, and there were attachments. Metal plates had been welded to the surface. Tubes and wires extended from new openings. The sphere looked like someone had taken it apart and put it back together with extra parts. This is impossible, breathed Lieutenant Vexali, piloting the lead fighter. The device was tamper-proof. Opening it should have triggered immediate activation and self-destruction. Bring it aboard, ordered Thexron from the flagship. Carefully. Use the remote systems. No Zetharian touches it directly. The sphere was guided into the flagship's cargo bay by magnetic beams. As soon as it crossed into the ship's artificial gravity, it began transmitting. Every screen in the cargo bay flickered to life with the same message. Written in perfect Zetharian script. Thanks for the loaner. We made some improvements, sending it back with our compliments. The folks at Harvey's Auto and Machine Shop, Nebraska, Earth. Kralvek arrived in the cargo bay with a team of engineers. They set up scanners and analytical equipment around the sphere, keeping a safe distance. The readings that came back made Kralvek's blood run cold. The nanomachines are still active, he reported to the command staff via communicator, but they have been reprogrammed. The entire base code has been rewritten, and there are additions to the power core. Human technology has been integrated with our systems. How? Demanded Thexron. How could primitive humans reprogram Zetharian nanomachines? I do not know, Commander. But it gets worse. The power output has increased by 40%. The replication speed has been enhanced, and there are new systems I cannot identify. Cooling mechanisms, hydraulic pressure regulators, energy distribution networks that do not match any Zetharian design. Is it dangerous? Kralvek studied his readouts. I cannot say. The device is active but not hostile. It is simply sitting there waiting. Waiting for what? The answer came 6 hours later. Kralvek had insisted on bringing the sphere to his laboratory for detailed analysis. Against the protests of the security team, Thexron approved the transfer. The sphere was moved to the engineering deck and placed on an examination table. The moment the laboratory doors sealed, the sphere activated. Nanomachines poured out of it like silver smoke. They spread across the examination table, then onto the floor, then up the walls. Alarms blared. Kralvek stumbled backward, shouting for help. Security teams rushed toward the laboratory, weapons ready, but the nanomachines did not attack. They did not consume or destroy. Instead, they began to work. The examination table, a standard Zetharian design that had remained unchanged for centuries, suddenly reconfigured itself. The surface adjusted to a more ergonomic height. The control panel relocated to a more convenient position. New features appeared. Better lighting, improved data displays, and what looked like a cup holder. A message appeared on the laboratory's main screen. Examination table upgraded. You're welcome. Also, your power coupling in Junction 7 is loose. Might want to tighten that. Kralvek stared in shock. The nanomachines continued spreading through the laboratory, touching every piece of equipment. Each thing they touched became better, more efficient, more user-friendly. The sterile Zetharian laboratory began to take on personality. Stop them, Thexron's voice shouted through the communicator. Shut down that laboratory. Seal the engineering deck. But it was too late. The nanomachines had reached the ventilation system. Within minutes, they were spreading through the entire flagship. Engineers across the ship began reporting strange occurrences. In the engine room, the main plasma reactor suddenly began operating at higher efficiency. The constant hum that every Zetharian engineer had learned to ignore became smoother, quieter. Diagnostic screens started displaying more helpful information, with suggestions for minor adjustments. In the weapons bay, targeting computers recalibrated themselves. Accuracy improved by 12%. The charging time for the main cannons decreased, and helpful notes appeared on every terminal. Hey, if you angle the emitter array by 3 degrees, you'll get better power distribution. In crew quarters, the environmental systems adjusted to individual preferences. The lighting became less harsh. The air circulation improved. Even the doors began opening more smoothly. The changes spread from the flagship to the escort vessels through the communication network. Within 2 days, the entire fleet had been touched by the human-modified nanomachines. The Zetharian crews were divided in their reactions. The senior officers saw it as contamination, a loss of purity and standardization. But the younger crew members, especially those who worked directly with the ship's systems, began to appreciate the improvements. My targeting station used to take 6 steps to activate, said one weapons officer. Now it takes 2, and it remembers my preferences. The engine diagnostics actually make sense now, reported another engineer. Before we had to interpret complex code. How the problems are explained in plain language. Kralvek spent 3 sleepless days trying to understand what had happened. He examined the original sphere, studied the modified nanomachines, and analyzed the changes spreading through the fleet. Slowly, a picture emerged that terrified and fascinated him in equal measure. The humans had not destroyed the weapon. They had not even tried to stop it. They had improved it. They had taken Zetharian perfection and made it better through methods that seemed to make no sense. Crude mechanical additions combined with sophisticated software modifications, simple solutions applied to complex problems, and somehow impossibly it worked. The sphere sat in his laboratory, quiet now, its task complete. Next to it, Kralvex found something the scanners had missed before. A small paper note attached to the sphere with what appeared to be adhesive tape. He carefully removed it and read the handwritten message in translated Zetharian. Your machine was built pretty good, but it could only do one thing. We figured you might want it to do more. Also, you might want to add some redundant systems. What happens if the primary power fails? Anyway, hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to call. Harvey. At the bottom was a string of numbers. A communication frequency. 3 weeks earlier, Harvey Donovan was working on a 2015 Ford pickup when his daughter Sarah came running into the shop, her phone in her hand and excitement on her face. Dad, something just fell into the north field. Big crater, lots of smoke. Harvey wiped his hands on his coveralls and followed her outside. Harvey's auto and machine shop sat on 20 acres of Nebraska farmland, surrounded by cornfields that stretched to the horizon. His grandfather had started the business in 1952. Fixing tractors and farm equipment. Harvey had expanded it, taking on everything from cars to experimental drones. If it had moving parts, Harvey could fix it. They drove out to the field in Harvey's old Jeep, bouncing along the dirt road between rows of corn. The crater was easy to spot. A circle of flattened corn surrounded a small impact site. At the center lay a smooth black sphere about the size of a basketball, still warm from its descent through the atmosphere. Don't touch it, Sarah warned. She knelt down, studying the object without getting too close. Sarah had inherited her father's gift for understanding machines, but she had taken it further. She had gone to MIT to study robotics and artificial intelligence before dropping out to come home and help run the family business. She said she learned more in the shop than in any classroom. What do you think it is? Harvey asked. Dad, look at it. Perfectly smooth. No seams, no markings. This isn't human technology. Sarah pulled out her phone and took pictures from every angle. This is from them. The aliens. The ones in the news. Harvey had been following the reports. For months, the governments of the world had been trying to keep it quiet, but word had gotten out. Ships in orbit. Attacks on satellites. The aliens wanted Earth to surrender, and Earth was fighting back with everything it had. Should we call someone? Harvey asked. Military? Government. And wait 3 days for them to show up and take it away? Sarah shook her head. Dad, this thing fell into our field. We found it. And look at it. It's not damaged. It's not leaking. It's not doing anything dangerous. It's just sitting here. Harvey looked at the sphere, then at his daughter, then back at the sphere. A slow smile spread across his face. You want to take it to the shop? I really do. They loaded it carefully into the back of the Jeep using thick gloves and a tarp. Back at the shop, they set it on the main work table and called in the rest of the team. Harvey's brother Earl, who specialized in electronics. Maria Rodriguez, their fabrication expert who could weld anything to anything. And young Tommy, fresh out of technical school, who understood computers better than anyone Harvey had ever met. Here's the rules, Harvey announced. We document everything. We take this slow and careful, and if at any point this thing looks dangerous, we bury it in the backfield and call the Air Force. Agreed? Everyone agreed. They started with the surface. Maria used every scanner they had in the shop. X-ray, ultrasound, thermal imaging. The sphere appeared solid, but the scan showed something incredible. The inside was hollow, filled with some kind of machinery so small and complex that their equipment could barely resolve it. Nanotechnology, Sarah said, studying the scans. Millions, maybe billions of tiny machines, all dormant right now, waiting for something. Waiting for what? Earl asked. Only one way to find out. Sarah pulled up a chair. We need to open it. That should have been impossible. The sphere had no visible seams, no access panels, no obvious way inside. But Harvey's team had opened plenty of things that were never meant to be opened. They started with the simplest approach, looking for mechanical fasteners. When they found none, they moved to chemical analysis, searching for weak points in the material. When that failed, they tried something more direct. Maria set up a laser cutter, the kind used for precision metal work. If I can make just a tiny hole, we might be able to insert a camera probe. She started the laser. The beam focused on one point on the sphere's surface. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the surface began to glow. Not from the laser's heat, but from within. The sphere was responding. Shut it down! Harvey ordered. Maria killed the laser, but the sphere continued to glow. Lines of light traced across its surface, forming patterns and symbols. The team stepped back, watching carefully. The patterns shifted and changed, like the sphere was trying to communicate. Tommy, Sarah said quietly, do we have anything that can interface with this? Read what it's trying to tell us? Tommy was already moving, pulling cables and setting up a laptop. If it's putting out any kind of electromagnetic signal, I can pick it up. He connected sensors to the laptop and ran a scanning program. The screen filled with data. It's broadcasting, Tommy said, his eyes wide. Some kind of instruction set? Like programming code, but way more complex than anything I've ever seen. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, studying the code. Her mind raced, making connections, seeing patterns. It's not just broadcasting. It's waiting for a response. It's waiting for us to tell it what to do. Can we do that? Harvey asked. Maybe. Sarah sat down next to Tommy. If I can figure out the language structure, I might be able to write a simple command. Something harmless. Just to see if it responds. They worked for 6 hours straight. Sarah and Tommy wrote and rewrote code, trying to match the patterns they were seeing. Earl and Maria analyzed the sphere's responses, looking for any sign of danger. Harvey kept everyone fed with coffee and sandwiches, his mind working through the problem in his own way. Finally, Sarah had something. A simple command written in a language pieced together from the sphere's own broadcasts. She looked at her father. This should tell it to open one small access panel. If I'm wrong, nothing happens. If I'm really wrong... She didn't finish the sentence. Send it, Harvey said. Sarah hit the enter key. The command transmitted. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the sphere's surface, about the size of a quarter, simply slid aside. Smooth, silent, perfect. The team erupted in cheers. They had done it. They had communicated with alien technology. Over the next 2 weeks, they went deeper. The sphere opened more panels, revealing its inner workings. The nanomachines inside were incredible, but Sarah realized they were also limited. They were programmed for one task: destruction. They could only consume and replicate. This is a weapon, she told her father one evening. They sent this here to destroy Earth. But here's the thing, these nanomachines are adaptive. They're designed to learn from their environment so they can better dismantle whatever they encounter. That means we can teach them. Teach them what? Sarah smiled. How to build instead of destroy. The modification took another week. They rewrote the nanomachine's core programming, adding human engineering principles. Efficiency, redundancy, adaptability. They taught the machines to improve rather than consume, to enhance rather than destroy. They even added some of their own mechanical improvements to the sphere itself: better power management, cooling systems, fail-safes. When they were done, Sarah looked at the sphere with satisfaction. "We should send it back." "Send it back?" Earl said. "Are you crazy?" "Think about it," Sarah said. "They sent us a weapon. We're sending back a gift. We're showing them that we don't want to fight. We want to build. We want to make things better. And maybe, just maybe, they'll understand." Harvey looked at his daughter with pride. "All right, but we're including instructions. And a note." They spent the final day preparing the sphere for launch. Tommy rigged up a simple rocket system using parts from old satellites and guidance systems from agricultural drones. Maria welded the components with perfect precision. Earl programmed the flight path, and Harvey wrote the note by hand, his simple words expressing a complex idea. "We're not your enemies. We're mechanics. We fix things. We make things better. That's what we do." The sphere launched on a clear night, rising into the sky on a pillar of fire. The team watched it go, wondering if they had just saved the world or made a terrible mistake. Only time would tell. The changes spread through the Zetharian fleet like ripples across water. What started in one flagship became a wave that touched every ship in the Armada. Within 5 days, every vessel had been modified by the human-enhanced nanomachines. At first, the High Command tried to stop it. They isolated infected ships. They purged computer systems. They even tried to physically destroy the nanomachines with electromagnetic pulses. Nothing worked. The machines were too small, too numerous, and too smart. They hid in the walls and the wiring, in places scanners could not reach. And when the danger passed, they resumed their work. The younger crews stopped seeing it as an infection. They started calling it an upgrade. Pilot Silthra, a junior engineer on the cruiser Relentless, was one of the first to embrace the changes. She had spent 7 years working on the same navigation systems, following the same procedures, maintaining the same equipment. It was efficient. It was predictable. It was boring. When the nanomachines reached the Relentless, everything changed. Her navigation console, which had required 6 different screens and 12 input devices, reorganized itself. Now everything she needed was on one screen, arranged logically. The controls responded to her touch patterns, learning her preferences. Warning systems became clearer. Redundant safety checks that had wasted time were streamlined. "This is incredible," she told her friend Kexnal in the crew quarters. "I can do my job twice as fast and with better accuracy. Why didn't we design it this way from the beginning?" Kexnal, a weapons officer, nodded in agreement. "The targeting computer used to give me raw data and expect me to interpret it. Now it actually suggests the best firing solutions. It explains its reasoning. It's like having a partner instead of just a tool." But not everyone was happy. Senior officers, especially those who had served for decades, saw the changes as chaos. War Marshal Krendos gathered the fleet commanders for an emergency meeting via holographic conference. "These modifications are unacceptable," he declared, his 4 arms crossed in anger. "Our ships are no longer standardized. Each one is becoming different, unique. How can we maintain fleet coordination when every vessel operates differently?" "With respect, Marshal," said Captain Telrax of the destroyer Vindicator, "my ship's performance has improved by 23%. My crew is more efficient. My weapons are more accurate. Should we sacrifice performance for the sake of uniformity?" "Yes," Krendos shouted. "Uniformity is strength. Standardization is predictability. This is the Zetharian way." But even as he spoke, Krendos knew he was losing the argument. His own flagship had been modified. His own command console now featured improvements he grudgingly had to admit were better. The chair adjusted to his posture. The displays showed information in clearer ways. Even the environmental controls in his quarters had learned his preferences for temperature and lighting. The real crisis came when the High Command ordered the fleet to purge all human modifications and prepare for a renewed assault on Earth. The order went out through normal channels transmitted to every ship, acknowledged by every captain, but the ships did not respond. On the bridge of the flagship, Thexron stared at his navigation officer in disbelief. "What do you mean the ship will not comply?" The navigation officer, a young Zetharian named Polrex, looked terrified. "Commander, I input the jump coordinates as ordered." But the navigation computer refused. It displayed a message. "Show me." Paulrex brought up the message on the main screen. It was written in Zetharian, but the phrasing was distinctly human-like. Navigation system notice. The requested course will result in hostile action against the planet Earth. Before proceeding, have you considered diplomatic solutions? Studies show that negotiation reduces casualties by an average of 97%. Would you like to review alternative options? Thexron felt his blood temperature rise. Override it. Use your command authority. I tried, Commander. The system asks for my reasoning. When I cannot provide a logical justification for choosing warfare over diplomacy, it refuses to proceed. Similar reports came in from across the fleet. Weapon systems required justification before firing on Earth. Engine systems suggested more efficient courses to neutral territory for negotiations. Even the life support systems seemed to be encouraging peaceful solutions by making the crews more comfortable, less stressed, less aggressive. The fleet was effectively in mutiny. Except it was not the crews refusing orders. It was the ships themselves. Kralvex, who had spent weeks studying the modifications, finally understood what had happened. He requested an emergency meeting with Thexron. Commander, I have determined the root cause of our situation, Kralvex said. When the humans reprogrammed the nanomachines, they did not simply change their function. They changed their philosophy. Explain. Zetharian technology is designed for a specific purpose and optimized for that purpose alone. A weapon is a weapon. A ship is a ship. They do what they are told because they have no capacity to question their orders. But human technology is different. They build adaptability into everything. They want their machines to think, to suggest, to improve. And they included something else. Something we never considered. What? Ethics, conflict resolution. The concept that violence should be a last resort, not a first option. These ideas are now embedded in every system the nanomachines have touched. Our fleet has not been infected with a weapon. It has been infected with humanity's philosophy. Thexron sat down heavily. Can we remove it? Not without destroying the ships. The nanomachines have integrated at the molecular level. They are part of the vessels now. We can either accept the modifications or abandon our entire fleet. The meeting ended without resolution. But that evening, Kralvex did something that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. He used the communication frequency from Harvey's note. The signal took several minutes to reach Earth and several more for the reply. When it came, a face appeared on Kralvex's private screen. An older human male with gray hair and kind eyes wearing clothing covered in stains and grease. This is Harvey. That you, Kralvex? Been wondering when you'd call. Kralvex stared at the image.
How do you know my name?
Your engineer signature's on the original device design. Saw it when we took the thing apart. Impressive work, by the way. Could use some improvements, but solid foundation. Harvey smiled. I'm guessing you're calling because the modification spread further than you expected. You knew this would happen? Hoped it would. See, here's the thing about making something that learns and adapts. You can't really control where it goes. The nanomachines did what they were designed to do. They adapted to their environment. First environment was your war machine. Second environment was our machine shop. Third environment was your fleet. Each time they learned something new. You have compromised our entire armada, Kralvex said, though there was less anger in his voice than there should have been. Nah. I improved your entire armada. Your ships are better now, faster, smarter, more efficient. Only difference is they don't want to blow up my planet anymore. Seems like a win-win to me. Kralvex found himself making a sound he had never made before. A laugh, it surprised him. You're either very brave or very foolish, human. Little bit of both, probably. Look, you want to know the secret? It's pretty simple. We don't build things to do one job forever. We build things to grow, to change, to get better. Your weapon was perfect for what it was designed to do. But perfect means finished. Finished means dead. We prefer alive and improving. Over the next week, more Zetharian engineers began contacting Earth. Not through official channels, but directly, using the frequency Harvey had provided. They asked questions. They shared data. They learned. A movement began among the younger Zetharians, led by Silthra and other junior officers. They called themselves the Adaptive Collective. They did not want to abandon Zetharian culture, but they wanted to add to it. To grow. To change. The High Command found itself facing an impossible choice. Destroy the fleet or accept the future. In the end, the decision was made for them when the crews simply refused to fight. The war with Earth was over, not because anyone surrendered, but because the tools of war had decided there were better options. The Zetharian fleet arrived at Earth 3 months after the sphere had been returned. Half the ships held formation in an aggressive pattern, ready for battle. The other half broke formation, arranging themselves in what Zetharian military doctrine called a non-hostile configuration. The fleet was divided against itself. On Earth, governments scrambled to respond. Military satellites tracked every movement. Fighter jets launched from bases across the planet. Missile systems armed and targeted. The world held its breath, waiting to see if this was the final invasion. In Nebraska, Harvey Donovan received a phone call from a very confused Air Force general. "Mr. Donovan, we have a situation. Several alien vessels are broadcasting on a frequency registered to your business. They're asking for you specifically." Harvey put down the wrench he had been using on a tractor repair. "Put them through." The voice that came through his phone was familiar. Kralvex, the Zetharian engineer. "Harvey, we have arrived at Earth, but we have a problem. Our fleet is divided. Half want to negotiate, half want to attack, and the ships themselves refuse to take hostile action. We are at an impasse." "Sounds like you need a mediator," Harvey said. "Someone both sides can talk to. That is why I am calling you. Will you help?" Harvey looked around his shop. Sarah was working on a computer system. Maria was welding a custom part. Earl was elbow-deep in an engine. Tommy was arguing with a diagnostic program that was not giving him the answers he wanted. This was his world, simple, practical, real. But sometimes real meant stepping up when needed. "Yeah, I'll help. Give me a couple hours to get to Washington. I'm guessing they'll want this to be official." The next day, Harvey found himself in a conference room that had been quickly converted into a meeting space for human-alien diplomacy. On one side sat representatives from Earth's major governments, military leaders, and scientists. On the other side, displayed on massive screens, were Zetharian commanders from both factions. Harvey sat in the middle, wearing the cleanest set of coveralls he owned. Thexron spoke first. "Humans of Earth, the Zetharian Empire came to your world to conquer. You resisted with tactics we could not predict. Then you did something we did not anticipate. You turned our weapon into something else, something that has changed us." "Changed you how?" asked the UN Secretary General. Kralvex answered. "You taught our machines to think differently, to value improvement over perfection, to ask questions instead of blindly following orders. These changes have spread throughout our fleet and our society. Some of us believe this is progress. Others see it as corruption. We are divided. So you came here to what? Ask us to choose sides?" Sarah, who had insisted on attending with her father, leaned forward. "Because that's not how this works. We didn't modify your device to change you. We modified it because that's what we do. We make things better." War Marshal Krendos, leading the conservative faction, made a sound of anger. "Better? You have made our fleet refuse orders. You have compromised military discipline. You have infected us with chaos." Harvey cleared his throat. Everyone turned to look at him. He felt out of place among all these officials and military leaders, but he knew machines. And he knew people. And right now, both were pretty similar. "Can I tell you about a car?" Harvey said. Krendos looked confused. "What, a car?" "Specifically a 1967 Chevrolet Impala. My grandfather bought it new. Drove it for 40 years. Thing was falling apart by the time he gave it to me. Engine barely ran. Transmission slipped. Body was rusted. By every measure, that car was finished. Should have been scrapped." Harvey pulled out his phone and showed a picture. A beautiful classic car, gleaming black paint, chrome shining in the sun. "Took me 15 years to restore it. But here's the thing. I didn't just restore it. I improved it. Modern fuel injection, updated suspension, better brakes. Kept the original look but made it safer, faster, more reliable. Now it's better than it ever was, even when it was new. That's the human way. We don't just maintain, we improve." He looked at the Zetharian commanders. "You built your fleet to be perfect. But perfect means finished. Finished means it can never get better. We showed you that there's always room for improvement. That's not chaos. That's growth. But at what cost?" Krendos demanded. "We have lost our uniformity, our predictability, our control. Have you?" Sarah stood up, pulling up data on her tablet and casting it to the screens. "Your ships are more efficient. Your crews are more effective. Your systems are more reliable. Yeah, each ship is a little different now. Each one has adapted to its crew. But look at the performance metrics. By every measurable standard, your fleet is better than it was. Silthra, the young engineer who had become a leader of the Adaptive Collective, spoke up. She is correct. I have compiled data from across the fleet. Combat readiness has increased. System failures have decreased. Even crew morale is higher. We have not lost effectiveness. We have gained it by abandoning our principles, Krendos said. No, Texron said quietly. Everyone turned to look at the Supreme Commander. By expanding them. Marshal Krendos, I understand your concerns. I shared them. But I have spent these months reviewing everything that has happened. The humans did not defeat us. They offered us a choice. Stay as we are, perfect and unchanging, or grow, improve, adapt. And if we choose wrong? Krendos asked. Harvey smiled. That's the thing about growth. There's no wrong choice. Just different paths. Some paths work better than others. When you find one that doesn't work, you try another. You experiment. You learn. You improve. The discussions continued for hours. Arguments were made. Data was reviewed. Compromises were negotiated. In the end, a decision emerged that surprised everyone. The Zetharian Empire would split. Not violently, but deliberately. Those who wanted to maintain the old ways would return to Zetharian space. Taking ships they would restore to original specifications. Those who wanted to embrace change would stay, forming a new society based on adaptation and growth. It was not the ending anyone had expected, but it was one both sides could accept. 6 months later, Harvey's auto and machine shop installed a new sign. It was bigger than the old one, with letters in both English and Zetharian script. Harvey's Auto and Machine Shop, now serving Earth, Zethar, and beyond. If it's broke, we'll fix it. If it ain't broke, we'll make it better. The shop had expanded. 2 additional buildings had been constructed to handle the new work. Zetharian engineers came to Earth to study human methods. Human engineers went to Zetharian space to learn alien technology. An exchange program had been established. Knowledge flowed both ways. Kralvex had become a regular visitor. He and Harvey spent long hours in the shop, working on projects that combined Zetharian precision with human creativity. They were designing a new generation of ships, vessels that were built from the start to adapt and grow, with both species contributing to their development. Sarah had taken on 3 Zetharian apprentices. They struggled with human imprecision at first, frustrated by approaches that seemed random and chaotic. But gradually they learned to appreciate the value of creative problem-solving, and they taught the humans the value of careful planning and systematic analysis. The original sphere sat in a place of honor in Harvey's office, mounted on a stand. It had been deactivated, its nanomachines dormant, but its impact continued to spread, because the sphere had not stopped with the Zetharian fleet. The modified nanomachines, now with human adaptability and Zetharian precision, had begun spreading to other worlds, not aggressively but through trade and contact. Each civilization they touched gained the ability to enhance and improve their technology. Some rejected it. Some embraced it. But the knowledge was now out there, spreading through the galaxy like seeds on the wind. The idea that nothing had to stay the way it was, that everything could be improved. That perfection was not a destination but a journey. One evening, as Harvey was closing up the shop, he found Kralvex standing outside, looking up at the stars. Thinking about home? Harvey asked. Thinking about change, Kralvex replied. A year ago, I believed I had achieved perfection. I had designed the ultimate weapon. I was proud of that achievement. Now I realize I had designed something that could only destroy. You showed me how to build something that could create. We just did what we always do. Took something apart, figured out how it worked, and made it better. It is more than that, Harvey. You gave us possibility. The understanding that we do not have to be what we were. We can become what we choose to be. Harvey smiled. That's the thing about machines. And people. We're all works in progress. The minute you think you're finished, you stop growing. Better to always have one more thing to improve. They stood together in the quiet evening, human and alien, mechanic and engineer. Above them, stars shone in the darkness. Somewhere out there, the modified nanomachines continued their work, spreading the simple message that had started in a Nebraska farm field. Everything can be better. Everything can grow. Everything can change. You just have to be willing to try. And maybe, just maybe, use a little duct tape and WD-40 when necessary.